Welcome to our Saturday special that is recorded on Friday for you guys out there. This is Coast to Coast Sports. If you are new, then you will now learn that we are all things Oregon Ducks and all things Florida Gators and everything in between. That is our show, Coast to Coast Sports. And if you have been here before and you are a returning listener, welcome back. We love having you. I am your host, Matty Ice Raridan. That is my co-host, Smoking Gator himself, David Street.
What's up, everybody?
We've got an action-packed weekend. It's college football season. Every weekend is packed, whether we're talking group of five, we're talking power five. It's always action-packed in my opinion. I'm sure David shares the same opinion as me. So we have an action-packed weekend of college football, and I'm excited. I'm pumped. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing started. This weekend, Oregon Ducks will be facing Stanford Cardinal. As well, Florida Gators will be facing off the Kentucky Wildcats, which is going to be a phenomenal game. So we're going to go ahead and actually talk about this Florida game first, if you don't mind, David. Why don't you tell the audience kind of what they could expect from the Florida Gators and this game?
Oh, all right. Here we go. So let's look at the numbers here, Matty. So we are 3-1. Kentucky is 4-0. So we are the underdog in this matchup, despite being the ranked team. But there's probably a good reason why we are the underdog, because one, we have lost the last two matchups against the Wildcats, and the game is at Kroger Field. So home field advantage is going to matter here for Kentucky. Let's take a look at the team schedules. All right. So Florida, we took our first loss at Utah, and then we've had a 3-game winning streak against McNeese State, Tennessee, and Charlotte. Kentucky's schedule, as I said before, Kentucky is 4-0. And so they've racked up wins against Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and at Vandy. So not exactly a murderer's row schedule right there. I think anybody who listened to that would agree that so far Florida has played the tougher schedule. Now, let's take a look at some notable players from each team, starting with the Gators. Graham Mertz on the season right now has 951 passing yards. He's got 6 total touchdowns, 4 rushing four passing and 2 rushing, and he's completing 78% of his passes. His favorite target far and away is wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, who has a team-leading 362 receiving yards on 26 receptions, and he's got 1 touchdown catch to go along with that. Trevor Etienne is our team's leading rusher with 329 rushing yards on 49 carries to go along with 2 scores on the ground. The defense, which has been the story for Florida football, is 5th in the country in total defense. We're giving up 245 yards per game. We are tied for 17th in the country in scoring defense, giving up just 13.5 points per game. And standout players from this unit include sophomore linebacker Shamar James, who has a team-leading 27 tackles and has just been an absolute menace on the field. Freshman safety Jordan Castell, who, despite being a freshman, a true freshman, that is, by the way, he's already locking up receivers like he's a veteran. And junior defensive end Princely Uman who leads all Division I players in pass rush win rate at 30.8%. Now, let's take a look at players from Kentucky and their defense. So Devin Leary, who I believe Florida was in talks to getting him, but I don't know if I have that exactly right. But anyway, Devin Leary has 1,060 passing yards. He's got 9 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, and he's completing 59% of his passes. By the way, if you're wondering what that was all about, I accidentally wrote down that he had 59 touchdown passes, which is not the case. 59 touchdown passes in only just 4 games would be beyond video game numbers, but no, he does not have 59 touchdown passes. He's completing 59% of his passes, and he's got 9 touchdown passes to go along with 5 interceptions. His favorite target is Tavion Robinson, who leads the team with 16 receptions, 283 receiving yards, and 3 touchdown catches. And the leading running back is Ray Davis, who has a team leading 50 carries, 314 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, that is. And he has been the team's workhorse, by the way. No other player, no other running back on that team, on Kentucky's team, has more than one rushing touchdown. So he has been a workhorse for that offense. Defense has been very solid for Kentucky. They're 20th in total defense, giving up 293 yards per game. 21st in scoring defense, giving up 15 and a half points per game. And notable player is Trevin Wallace, linebacker, who leads the team with 25 tackles and 3.5 sacks. Before we go into a key factor here, let's just compare our 2 quarterbacks, Graham Mertz and Devin Leary. Now, apparently, there was talks of Graham Mertz possibly going to Kentucky until they got Devin Leary, and of course, people were saying, "Oh, Kentucky got the better quarterback, and Florida only got Graham Mertz." Okay, well, let's take a look at the numbers. Sure, Devin Leary has more passing yards, and he's got more touchdown passes than Graham Mertz. But let's take a look at everything else. As I said before, Kentucky's schedule, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They played a poop schedule, okay? The fact that they're 4-0 against those opponents should not be surprising to anybody. And yeah, Leary may have 9 touchdown passes, but the fact that he's also given the ball away to opposing defenses 5 times already this season, again against that poop schedule, that has to be concerning for Kentucky fans. And meanwhile, you got Mertz, who may only have 4 touchdown passes, but again, he's also faced a much tougher schedule. He's already had to face 2 of the better teams in the country in Utah and Tennessee, and he's only had just 1 interception. And so, sure, he might not be producing as much as Leary, but he is taking care of the ball at a much better rate against a much tougher schedule. So if you ask me, bias aside, I'd say so far Florida has had the better quarterback. But of course, we'll see what happens come tomorrow, actually. And then finally, a key factor here, Matty, is explosive plays. And this is where things get juicy, okay? Kentucky offense ranks number 1 in explosive plays. And meanwhile, Florida's defense, as great as it has been so far, they do have one major weakness, and that is giving up explosive plays. Whereas Kentucky leads the country in producing explosive plays, we are dead last in giving up explosive plays. And unfortunately, that just kind of comes with the territory of playing an aggressive style of defense. So it's just, it is what it is. Obviously, you want to try to limit that, but that just kind of comes with the territory. So right away, just look for the defense to try to come up with ways to stop Ray Davis, because you just know that Kentucky is going to lean on him right away. But this is an exciting matchup, and I think we're going to win. My prediction is 24-17. I think it's going to be a very tight game. But yeah, at the end of the day, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, going into this weekend, actually, this game is one of the games that I circled that I was really intrigued in, because you have a 3-1 Florida Gator team coming into a 4-0 Kentucky Wildcat team, and Kentucky is going to be the home favorite. And you might have already answered this question when I'm going to ask you, but what is Florida's biggest need? And when I say that is, what is Florida's biggest need to win this game? Because I do think it's going to be a very close matchup. And so does Vegas. I'm pretty sure Kentucky is only a -1 favorite right now. So it's very close within that matchup. So what do you think? What do the Florida Gators need to win this game?
If you were to ask me, what is one key we need to do to win? Better red zone play calling, just better play in the red zone in general. Because if you look at our numbers, Matty, we are driving the ball down the field. We are moving the ball down the field. And I don't remember exactly where we rank, but I know we're either at the top or near the top, at least among SEC teams in time of possession. We're possessing the ball, I think, at 34 minutes per game. So we're holding on to the ball. We're moving the ball. We're doing pretty much almost everything we need to do on offense, except for scoring touchdowns. And you saw that last week against Charlotte. We only had one touchdown, and I think we had 5, maybe 6 field goals. So we had way more field goals than we did touchdowns. So that's the key for me, man. We have to find ways to produce better in the red zone, because there is nothing more maddening than seeing our offense march all the way down to the red zone with relative ease, by the way, and then they're like, what do we do now? So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost like they kind of need to match at the same time the explosiveness that Kentucky's going to bring. And this is where I think, and I'm not saying he's played bad whatsoever, but I think this is where Graham Mertz needs to have his best game as a Florida Gator. And I know that's kind of without being said, every quarterback should have their best game every game. So your last game should be your worst and so forth. But I really think for the Florida Gators to win this game, yes, they need to produce touchdowns within the red zone, put up the points, but they need to also be explosiveness. And I do think it's going to start with Graham Mertz, because I think they are a run first team and they've established that. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're going to run the ball down your throat, and that's great. But you need to be able to mix it up, because if you're playing a team like Kentucky that is explosive, well, you're going to need to be just as much as explosive. So I do see your prediction, and actually I'm a little close in it. I actually see a 32-29 Florida Gators victory. I do think Florida comes in on the road, and I do think they pull off this win. I think for me, it means more to them. They had this such low expectation. I'm not saying them themselves, but the media had such a low expectation for Florida that this win will shove it down their throat. So I am looking and hoping to see that with the Florida Gators, because I think they could pull off this win.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about Graham Mertz too. Like, even though we are known to be a rush first offense, and Trevor Etienne is arguably our team's best player, at least best offensive player, at the end of the day, your quarterback is still your most important player. And you're going to have games where your quarterback just has to be your best player. I mean, as simple as that sounds, I wish I could come up with like something more profound than that, but it's the truth. Your quarterback is going to have to be your best player in some games, because your rushers, your running backs are not always going to produce, and that's just the truth. You have to have your quarterback come out as your best player, and yeah, I could definitely see that being the case this Saturday, which again is tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I think Oregon is in a very similar situation, because we have such an excellent run game. We average 232 rush yards a game, but at the end of the day, Bo Nix has to be our leader. He's got to be that dog. And but I don't think we're facing as much as an uphill battle. Whereas Florida with Graham Mertz, especially being the transfer quarterback this year, he is having to establish that with the Florida Gators, the fan base, and the media. Whereas Bo Nix came into the season with Heisman talks. But I don't say that in any means to brag, but I do think Oregon is in a similar situation.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, you have to take into consideration that Bo Nix has already proven himself to be a guy who can take over games for Oregon, and Graham Mertz so far has not. But I'm sure that time will come soon.
Yeah, well, we'll use that as a perfect gateway over to the Oregon Ducks versus Stanford Cardinal game this Saturday. And I want to lay out some key facts, and I think it's just honestly the stats will speak for itself. Uh, Bo Nix coming into this game has thrown for 1,169 yards with 11 touchdowns and one interception. But on top of that, he is throwing at an astonishing 79.4% completion percentage, which is up at the very top of all of college football. So he's playing very smart and very clean football. And I know you could say, well, maybe they throw a lot of screens and all that, but it's in addition to that. If you're watching tape, you're watching Bo Nix play some very clean football, and I'm loving it. As an Oregon Ducks fan, I'm loving it. The one interception that he had last week, like I've mentioned in the prior shows, uh, he'll shoot himself in the foot on that. He'll admit where he was wrong, where he could have been better, and he studies the game. I'm seeing that week in and week out with him. So that I'm not worried about. It's just one interception, but 79.4% completion percentage is perfectly fine in my book. As I said earlier, rushing yards, they're putting up 232 rushing yards a game. So as you can see, our identity is right there. But it's not just that; we're pretty well balanced in between the two from passing and rushing. But here's a wild stat that I found incredible to me was Oregon so far this year is averaging 7 touchdowns a game. So far through 4 games this year, the Ducks have a total of 28 touchdowns. So you're looking at 7 touchdowns a game. I just think that's amazing. Anyone would love to put up even half of that a game just touchdown wise. So I'm really liking what the Oregon Ducks are doing this year, not only on offense but on defense too. But 7 touchdowns a game in my book is a great team. And let's go ahead and talk more about the defense too. The defense is giving up on average 13.3 points a game. So that does rank them, I want to say, around 11th. So just like Kentucky being 20th, Oregon is at 11th with 13.3 points a game they're giving up on defense. And they're giving up on average 264 yards a game total on defense. And believe it or not, most of that is on the rushing front. Our pass defense, I haven't seen an Oregon pass defense like this in some time. 20 it has more of like the shades of 2019 when they went to the Rose Bowl and defeated the Wisconsin. They're they're looking really good on their defensive backs. I think Dan Lanning has done an amazing job just kind of getting his troops in line there. We're looking great on defense, and that to me is a bright side. So, um, and here's another crazy stat: is Oregon's defense has given up a total of 53 points all year. For instance, the Ducks' offense is averaging 54 points a game. So their offense more. Entire defense has given up the entire year. So that doesn't tell you how balanced this Oregon Ducks team is. I don't know what will. You're looking at a team that is averaging more than their defense is giving up. You're looking at the passing yards a game that Bo Nix is throwing versus the rushing yards, and they're very. I mean, I won't say they're very close because Bo Nix is throwing in the 300s, whereas the rushing is on 233 or 232 yards a game. So I I'm loving what I'm seeing. Uh, Very balanced, and you're not looking at a team that's just known for their offense. Back in the days, watching the games when Chip Kelly was here, you'd always hear the announcer say, "You don't want to have a track meet with Oregon because this is where they're going to beat you. When you're on offense and you're in the red zone, you can't settle for 3 because this Oregon Ducks team is going to score 7 their next drive." And we're seeing a team that the offense is doing that. They're going down, they're scoring 7. Their defense is even letting you in field goal range. So you're looking at a different Oregon Ducks team that it's not just a track meet. We're here to show up and we're here to dominate on all fronts. So uh, this Stanford game, Stanford's coming in with 1 win. How they have 1 win is shocking to a lot of people, but hey, a win is a win. It always will be in my book. But expectations are not high for them. Some could consider it a trap game. It's not really in my book, even though Oregon in 2 weeks will be playing a very, very tough Washington team. They actually have a really big 3-game stretch coming up. But Oregon, I think, is going to come in here, and this is where I think they need to play smart football. You don't want any injuries coming from this game, especially when we're going to be facing a 3-headed monster with Washington State, and Utah coming up. I think we need to play it smart. We need to get a lead early, and then we need to kind of coast from there I know it's going to sound kind of contradictory with what I'm about to say, but my prediction for this game is a 49-10 victory for the Oregon Ducks. I think even with our backups in later in the game, I think our defense is still going to be able to hold Stanford. And I think even our backups and offense with Ty Thompson there will be able to score at least a touchdown or two. So I've got a 49-10 Ducks victory.
Mm. Yeah, man. I think that's probably pretty accurate prediction. I mean, you pretty much implied it. Stanford has been terrible, and I do have a question, by the way. I'm noticing I'm noticing something interesting here, particularly when it comes to your rushing numbers. So Bucky Irving is your team's leading rusher by about 100 yards. He's got 9 more carries than the next closest running back, who is Jordan James, and yet Irving has 3 touchdown runs and Jordan James has 6 touchdown runs. So has Will Stein been using Jordan James as more of a red zone threat?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, if you watch, besides the opening drive, if you watch the second drive that Oregon has the ball, you're going to see all three running backs there. You're going to see Bucky Irving. You're going to see then Jordan James. Then you're going to see Noah Whittington, where Jordan James and Noah Whittington, they're known as more a heavier runner, especially in the red zone situations, where Bucky Irving is an all around back. I mean, I think he shocked a lot of people this last week against Colorado, where they were having trouble tackling him. Here they were going in the game talking about how small their players are. They couldn't even tackle the Ducks. So it's I mean, you are absolutely right when it comes to the red zone. And honestly, Bucky Irving, with at least one or two of his 3 touchdown runs, it was more on a long distance explosive touchdown runs. But I don't worry about that. I love the fact that we have multiple running backs that complement each other. My only worry is that we did lose Noah Whittington to an injury last week, and it sounds to be a pretty severe one. So we can kind of expect our numbers to go down a little bit, but I have total faith and trust with Bucky Irving and Jordan James that they're going to carry this load and they'll be more than happy to. And they're going to be playing for their brother out there. It's sad not to see Noah Whittington, but they will definitely play for their brother. And I think they're going to be putting up some fantastic numbers. So college fantasy football is a thing now. And I will say I've got Bucky Irving on my fantasy team, and I do feel a lot better because I know his workload is going to be increased, which hopefully will increase yardage and touchdowns and points for fantasy for me. So I'll take it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think you guys have the depth to more than make up for any absence.
Yeah, and before we change topics here, I want to call out someone here. You call me Rodney Dangerfield because I'm taking you back to school, and that's Fox Sports. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. I'll tell you what. Do you guys even know how to talk news? I we all saw Greg Jennings attempting to talk college football, attempting to talk Oregon Ducks, and we saw how that went. He failed miserably. Yesterday, Fox Sports posted this picture, and I'm going to illustrate it here for you. They posted a picture, 3 teams in the Pac-12 who has highest chance to make the college football playoff. You had USC. The picture they used for USC, you had Caleb Williams. Shocker. Then you had Washington. Picture they used, Junior. No surprise there. Then you had Oregon. And you saw the trend. Quarterback. For sure they got a picture of Bo Nix, right? No. They got a picture of Ty Thompson, Oregon's second string backup quarterback. What are you thinking? Yes, you kept up with the trend of quarterbacks. I'll give you that. I'll give you that credit right there. But to put our backup on there as a picture, I mean, come on. Like, get better. I don't know if your team just doesn't know who the Oregon Ducks starting quarterback is, and if so, shame on you. You should know who Bo is now. But to have our backup quarterback on there as a picture versus Caleb Williams, who is the reigning defending Heisman champ, and you got Michael Penix Jr., who very well could be the next Heisman. Got Bo Nix on there. So Fox Sports, please get better. I mean,
It's
you're down here. All you gotta do is just a little bit more, and it'll get you up. But I, the trust is not there. It almost makes me feel as a fan that you don't know college football based off of 2 weeks in a row when it comes to that.
It's insane, Matty. I mean, I talked about before that, it's one thing to be wrong. Like it's one thing if you make a mistake while you're talking, because unfortunately you can't edit out stuff in real time. But this is a graphic we're talking about. You can edit a graphic. You had an opportunity to go to your editors and ask, "Hey, can you make sure that this is correct? Is this their starting quarterback?" Even though you should know who Oregon's starting quarterback is, but no, actually, Matty, I'll be honest with you. I had no idea that graphic existed, but sadly, I can't say I'm surprised either.
Yeah, you're looking at a Fox company as a whole. Fox Sports is just merely a subdivision of what Fox is as a whole, and they are multi billion dollar company. I couldn't tell you their worth off the top of my head, but when you have a worth in the billions like they do, I would imagine that you're gonna have people proofread not only what you're writing, proofread what you're gonna be saying on a live show, and proofreading what you're gonna post on your social media. So, where did that slip? It slipped through many cracks, in my opinion. So that's where I was like, do they even know college football? Probably not, because if it went through one crack to another, they all probably thought that's Oregon's guy right there. Yeah, he looks like he could play. So that's merely my opinion, but I had to call them out. I was just ashamed that 2 weeks in a row they've made mistakes like that. But hey, it's just chip on our shoulder. I'll take it.
Chip Kelly on your shoulder.
Yeah.
I had to.
um, so, like I said earlier at the beginning of this show, we had very sort of weekend of college football, something that I'm looking forward to. Besides our games, we talk about this every week. What are the games that a Florida Gator fan should be keeping an eye on, especially in the SEC this weekend?
Well, Maddie, I think one game that a lot of people are talking about is number one Georgia against Auburn. But actually, one game that I want to talk about is South Carolina versus Tennessee. Now we all know what happened last year. Tennessee was what were they like? Were they 9-1, 10-1? I know they only had just one loss coming into the South Carolina game, and they beat South Carolina, and they probably have a decent shot to go to the playoffs. They weren't going to. Of course, they weren't going to go to the SEC championship since Georgia had that all but locked up. But Tennessee had a pretty good chance, and then they blew it. They got murdered. What was it, 63-38 against South Carolina? Are you kidding me? And keep in mind that South Carolina had played very inconsistently up to that point. But Spencer Rattler went off, man. Huge credit to him. And speaking of Spencer Rattler, by the way, I think you can make a case that Rattler, other than Jaden Daniels, I think you can make the case that Rattler has been the best quarterback in the SEC, especially when you consider what he's been dealing with, especially that offensive line. Dude, he's already been sacked 16 times in 4 games. 16 times in four games. Like, do you realize how insane that is? It's honestly a miracle that nothing terrible has happened to him yet. And South Carolina is 2-2 purely because of Spencer Rattler. If it wasn't for Spencer Rattler, they would easily be 0-4. But in fairness, I don't want to give Rattler all the credit because, of course, South Carolina does have a monster receiver. You probably know his name. That is, of course, Xavier Leggett. And I'm looking at his numbers right now, Matty, and my jaw is just about to drop to the floor because here are Leggett's numbers. So he leads the team with 27 receptions, which is far and away the most on the team. He leads the team with 556 receiving yards. You want to know the next closest guy? 120 receiving yards. So that's how dominant Leggett has been. and he's averaging 20.6 yards per excuse me yards per reception, and he's got 3 touchdowns. So clearly a favorite target for Spencer Rattler. And so I say before that South Carolina would probably be 0-4 without Spencer Rattler. But I don't want to take credit away from Leggett either, man, because Leggett has been an absolute monster. But at the end of the day, I know that South Carolina whooped Tennessee last year, but I think Tennessee gets its revenge. I think Heupel is going to motivate those guys, remind them what happened last year, the embarrassment they suffered. And if I had to pick a score right off the top of my head, I'm going to say South Carolina 35. Excuse me, Tennessee 35. I'm going to say Tennessee 35, South Carolina 29. 35-29, Tennessee is my final score prediction.
Yeah, is this game being played, do you know, at Rocky Top?
I believe that it is. Let me check. Let me just check real quick.
Yeah,
Affirmative. It is at Rocky Top.
yeah, and Rocky Top is one tough place to play when you're an opposing team. So I could see Tennessee having the edge there. And it sucks because this Shane Beamer led team of South Carolina, they do have some pieces. They really do, as you've named off with Spencer Rattler at quarterback and Leggett at receiver, and even Joyner, who is a great wide receiver running back. And but they still aren't just producing because that offensive line. Granted, most of those sacks that he has did come in week one against North Carolina, but uh, I like Spencer Rattler and I like Shane Beamer, and I'd love to see this team do a lot better. But I think tomorrow Tennessee is going to have their number. The revenge tour starts tomorrow. So, but the game that as a Pac-12 uh, fan, well, just with my team being in there, that I'm going to be keeping an eye on is the Utah versus Oregon State game. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is our Saturday college football special, but it is filmed on Friday. The game has yet to be played. Uh, Utah is still going to be without Cam Rising, but they're still 4-0. They're still winning games. Their defense is actually one of the top defenses. Their defense actually statistically may be better than Oregon so far this year. So their defense is helping them win games, especially when they are playing with their backup quarterbacks. But expected to still be a good game. Oregon State coming off their first loss of the year against Washington State. They were humbled. And they may come out a better team. I don't know, but I'm hoping that they do because nothing is sweeter than and then if you do come off a loss, then to avenge that loss and to be a better team. So we're gonna see what Oregon State is made out of this week, but make a prediction now. I still believe that Utah does win this game. I do think they are still going to be undefeated. They just, even though Cam Rising's not there, they are just like Oregon, a very complete team, and they have an amazing coach. And that's where I think it's going to be, is that their coach is way better.
Kyle Whittingham at this point has to be the favorite for the coach of the year, right? 4-0 with your backup quarterback, and I think sometimes they've even used their third string quarterback.
No, yeah, they have, and it just shows you who he is. I'm a Ducks fan, but I love watching him coach. He is one fantastic coach, and if you're ever going to be an inspiring coach someday out there, watch him. But Utah, I mean, the ball's in their court. I will give them that. Is I think they could suffer a loss without Cam Rising, and their resume is still going to be great because it's not really dented because they didn't have Cam Rising. But I think this Utah team is going to be dangerous once Cam Rising comes out. They're already dangerous now. So that's a team that our game, I'm going to be keeping my eye on. The team, though, itself, Utah, I can't keep my eyes off them. They scare me. They've back-to-back Pac-12 champs. So that's a game I'm keeping my eye on. But before we go, I wanted to talk about this really cool story really quick. We all know Travis Hunter uh, faced this injury from a late hit against Colorado State 2 weeks ago. Did not play against Oregon this last week, and he will not play against USC this week. As much as he wants to come back, that's just the dog that he is. Dion wants him to get healthier, and I respect Dion for that. I'm sure he'd love to have his top guy in there, but it's about the safety and the health of these kids. So I respect that. But Travis Hunter was hurt by a name Henry Blackburn. And Henry Blackburn, him and his family did receive death threats after this, which is so sad. People don't do that. You can't stoop down to this level. But needless to say, they linked up uh, the other day and they went and actually played bowling together. A lot of people don't bowl anymore, but bowling's fun. But this is just an incredible story where the two of them did meet up. I know Henry Blackburn does feel horrible for it, but Travis Hunter wanted to let him know, don't feel bad. This is the game here. You know, I still got love and respect for you. And they went and met up. They went bowling, and they actually donated $1,000 each for their bowling game. The winner was able to choose which charity it went to. Travis Hunter did win. However, though, he did pass the torch over to Henry Blackburn for him to choose the charity of his choice for the money to go to. So I think that's just an incredible story. That's football. That's sports. There's more stories like that than you know of. You just got to pay attention. I mean, we're a brotherhood out here. We may go out there, we may smack each other on the field, but at the end of the day, we love and respect each other. So I thought that was an incredible story. Go ahead and look more into it because it is inspiring. But that being said, though, that is the conclusion of our Saturday college football special. Please tune in every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Saturday as we are Coast to Coast Sports. I am your host once again, Matty Ice Raritan. That is Smoking Gator himself, David Street. Thank you. Until next time, go Ducks.
And go Gators.